Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the Garuda Purana and ancient yogic science to unpack a truly massive question. How does a soul actually enter a human body? Whether you view these texts as literal spiritual mechanics or just incredibly rich philosophical metaphors, the detailed, systematic way they describe the spark of life is absolutely fascinating. So let's start with a physical mystery you've probably noticed. You know that extremely fragile, soft spot on a newborn baby's skull? The one that makes every new parent totally panic? Right. Medical science tells us these are unfused skull bones, there to help the baby pass through the birth canal and allow the brain to grow rapidly. But ancient Indian texts offer a completely different and highly structural spiritual explanation for exactly why this gap exists and why it deliberately stays open for a while after birth.
Part 1. Mystery of the Soul.
To really get this, we have to talk about Pran Shakti. Think of it as the ultimate life force, the literal energy or soul that turns a biological vessel into a living, breathing person. If we assume this life force exists, the immediate next question is, how? How does this invisible energy actually transition into physical human biology? Which brings us to Part 2, Conception and Attraction. The cause and effect chain here is wild. The Garuda Purana outlines that it all starts at the exact moment of conception. The parent's emotional state literally generates a specific vibrational field. It's like a cosmic magnet. It broadcasts a frequency, and a soul with a matching frequency gets pulled right to the womb. Once it's drawn in, this soul hovers there, actively using its energy to turbocharge the biological cell division of the growing embryo. As this hovering soul accelerates that cell division, the physical and spiritual bodies are actually developing side by side. It's like a simultaneous blueprint. The physical heart forms first, as a major milestone, but a parallel spiritual infrastructure is also being constructed right alongside it. And this all builds up to a critical, absolute turning point right around the 3-month mark of the pregnancy.
Part 3. Entering the Brahmarandra.
Yogic science tells us that channels for this life force are forming into energy vortexes, the chakras. You've got the foundational 7, running straight from the Muladhara at the base all the way up to the Sahasrara at the crown. Essentially, the fetus is wiring its spiritual nervous system, getting everything primed and ready for the massive surge of energy that's about to move in.
And here is where it connects back to our newborn mystery. As the skull takes shape, a very specific gateway forms. It's called the Brahmarandra. In yogic terms, this is the 12th bindu, a focal point linking straight to the crown chakra. It's described as an actual physical and spiritual tunnel located at the top back of the cranial region. Sound familiar? Yep, it perfectly maps to that fragile soft spot we talked about at the beginning.
Right around month 3 of fetal development, the Brahmarandra is fully constructed and secured. And boom, this is the precise moment, according to the texts, that the hovering soul finally makes its move. It enters the physical body straight through this newly opened gateway.
But it doesn't just hang out in the head. Once it's through the door, the soul travels down and sets up shop in the heart. The heart becomes the ultimate command center. From there, it pushes its energy outward, connecting to all the body's chakras and even wiring us to dimensions of reality that we can't physically perceive.
Part 4. The Open Escape Hatch.
So why does that gap in the skull stay open after birth? Because, basically, the soul is keeping its options open. This life force possesses a really high level of awareness as it evaluates its new physical vessel. If everything looks good and the body is viable, it chooses to stay. Life flourishes. But, and this is a heavy concept, if it deems the body unfit to sustain its journey, the soul will simply leave, right back through that open Brahmarandra. Ancient traditions actually use the spiritual mechanism to explain medically unexplainable stillbirths, viewing them as a conscious departure rather than just a biological failure.
There's this brilliant metaphor used in these traditions. A good guest always enters and exits through the front door. The soul deeply respects the physical vessel. It wants to use the Brahmarandra to come in and to go out. In fact, these teachings claim that when a person's life eventually ends, consciously leaving the body through this exact same cranial gateway is the ultimate, most refined way to depart.
When you understand this mechanism, traditional Indian pregnancy customs make so much sense. Families knew that a vibrational field attracts a matching soul, so they would carefully curate the mother's entire environment. We're talking specific incense, calming sounds and mantras, specialized foods, the whole shebang. They were literally trying to tune the mother's frequency to send out the highest possible invitation, hoping to attract an incredibly elevated soul into the developing child.
Part 5. 3 Forms of Soul.
To wrap this up, let's look at how the Garuda Purana categorizes the soul itself once it's in this framework. It breaks it down into 3 distinct states. First is the Jivatma, which is the soul actively bound and residing inside a physical human body. Then there's the Pratatma. This is a soul heavily driven by worldly passions, unfulfilled desires, basically chasing lust. And finally, the Suksmatma, which describes the soul when it exists or enters the body in a highly subtle, incredibly refined, and elevated form.
So, what does this all mean for us? Well, whether you see this as literal, actionable science, or just a deeply profound poetic metaphor for biology, texts like the Garuda Purana offer such a beautifully structured way to think about our existence. It leaves us with a really fascinating question. Does looking through this ancient, highly detailed lens change how you view the absolute miracle of conception, childbirth, and the very essence of what makes us human? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive sparked your curiosity to look at the world and life itself just a little bit differently.